Audio. Here we go. There's been one guy pounding away on me over one of the videos about euthanasia. He just doesn't let up. And this guy doesn't really seem to want to be confused by any facts. So anyway, euthanasia is euthanasia. And there were things came up that I never really thought about before, and maybe I did, but it never really went too far out of my way to really push it. It all started out when I first learned that Prince Philip and Nelson Mandela were fighting for their lives at the same time in ICUs. And I was thinking, they wouldn't dare, the euthanasia movement would not dare go after either of those guys because of their high-profile name and status. But in July, when it was coming up to Nelson Mandela's birthday, I started paying attention to little things about euthanasia, trying to push the Mandela family and the hospital to push them out, put an end to them, terminate them. Too old. He didn't say it in those words, but you know, the ideas are there, and the body language speaks a lot more than vocabulary words. And I really appreciate the fact that South Africa has not been totally poisoned yet by these European elite eugenics masters who try to work their way into becoming a famous tune that people hear about over and over again. And they try to break down the walls of resistance in every country they fight their tune in. And if they take enough years, they seem to be have gotten their way with the younger generation, because the children start growing up, learning all of this stuff in school and at home and on the news, as their parents watch the news. And instead of children being free to grow up and have fun, this subtle propaganda just in the back of their minds, anytime they hear something about euthanasia, the right to die. So I can see what strategy has been in Canada for the last 20 years, more than 20 years now. And once people are addicted to this idea that there's something called a right to die movement, they're very persuasive at getting more of their music across the airwaves and into all the forums newspapers, magazines, movies, documentaries, etc. And on the comments forum at South African newspapers, I posted a few comments, and somebody kind of, while he was carrying on there a couple of weeks ago or so, I started really thinking it over about a right to die. And something I read by Alex Schadenberg kind of really showed me something about the legal right to die. And that's what they're wanting. All these people, all these laws are about legalizing the right to die. One country after another. And now they're going by states and provinces. Because everywhere that it's been gone through the legislative process, the governments fully understand, hey, this is dangerous stuff. Because they have to go through all the information which people in the public forum are not getting enough of. And then there's enough people out there to discredit what the rest of us have to say, because these right to die dictators have so much clout and monopolize the media, the mainstream media. So it gets down to life support. I got in a tangle with somebody on a newspaper site comment sections about life support. So I finally fired away about life support. God is the one that gives us our life. God the Creator. And I get tangled up with people who kind of trying to educate me there is no God. God doesn't exist. He's out of the picture. Well, he's out of the picture for them. However, it's mostly those God deniers, God bashers, who live the most miserable lives, wanting to get laws passed to have each other killed off if they want. In fact, a fair number of them have pulled out of killing each other off mode and checked in for palliative care, just to be made comfortable until they died naturally. But some of these people have been instrumental in getting rid of other people who themselves would have preferred dying naturally with real palliative care, not the palliative care definition by the Quebec government and the Oregon government. In fact, the Oregon Right to Die movement is in charge of the healthcare system there. Anyway, talking about right to die and life support. What hit me was this. If you have a pacemaker, you're on life support. Transhumanism. There are people who didn't care about the population of the world with new technology and transhumanism. They want it for themselves because they want to replace every organ in their bodies, the computer, electronics, and prosthetics, and preserve their brain, upload their brain, have it reprogrammed and downloaded, however way they choose to. This kind of science is going on because they're scared to die. Yet they want to dictate these, have the duty to die. The movement wants the rest of us to die. In fact, they're wanting to put a stop to people dying of old age. Everybody's supposed to wear a guilt complex for being too old when there's poverty around the world and there's not enough to go around. Meanwhile, it's not the people who need the medical system who are the problem of poverty around the world. It is the people who preach the great sermons about it, who want to deliberately keep the third world in poverty for their benefit, for them to exploit Africa and India, North Korea, and other parts of the world, so they can control those people. And that those people will never become equal to the white supremacists and the white Zionists, that they will always be underdogs. So everybody who wears a pacemaker is living on life support. Okay? The argument might be now, yeah, but they got a good quality life and they're able to function and be productive with their life support pacemaker. But quality of life should not be allowed to enter into the equation. Sorry, I shouldn't. There's a guy I learned years ago. It was written about in the New York Times. And this doctor, this researcher in New York, had been researching using this one guy since 1972 and went into a coma. And in those days, there wasn't as much known about coma as there is as time went on. And during the time that Terry Schiavo was being pressured to just die and get out of the way for Michael Schiavo, this report was published about this patient in New York in a coma since 1972. And this guy, this doctor, discovers that in the cerebral cortex, the part of their brain that Michael Shiva's doctors and lawyers were capitalizing on, saying that Terry Shiva didn't have one. It was all filled up with water or fluids. This doctor in New York showed all kinds of electrical activity going on in all the parts of the brain that people they considered comatose vegetables. Now, you talk about life support. What's that scientist, what's his name? The famous scientist, oh God, what's his name? That was good. The guy who has ALS, he's a physicist. He's been in the condition he's been in on life support most of his life. But there's no big push to get rid of him. He's got lots of money, lots of people around him, help him with everything he needs help with. But they get life support. The thing that stands out to me about all these dictators and the right to die movement, when the heart stops, a person is dead. That's simple. In about 40 minutes, the person cannot recover after he's dead. Heart stops, chest stops rising and falling. So the breathing tube and the respirator only causes the body to respirate. Take in oxygen, removes carbon dioxide. So these people who are relentless, it's saying the only reason people on respirators are alive is because the respirators keep them alive. Well, it's keeping the respiratory system able to take in oxygen and remove carbon dioxide. However, it is the heart that pumps the blood. When the heart stops pumping the blood, it does not take long for a person to be dead. So, I don't think these dictators, the right to die movement, should have any right to continue their relentless campaigns to get more laws passed around the world. I don't think they should be allowed the right to open their mouths anymore. All the information has been out there for 20 years. And since Belgium and Holland passed their kill bills, everybody who's involved with this fully understands the track record before and after they got their laws. And they all pretended, the safeguards are going to work. And since they've been very exposed how safe their safeguards have worked, they've turned around and denied it. Now that's pretty serious, that they continuously deny the safeguards, that the safeguards will work, that they say the safeguards are working. They're not working. They don't want them to work. And as far as I'm concerned, all those kill bills where they put in little information about safeguards and how they were going to work and blah, 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 they had no intentions of enforcing the safeguards. They're just a bunch of script writers and people who believe that there is any sincerity in these people are wrong. Now, I heard somebody get really upset about it one time, about old people who have no future, and they shouldn't be allowed to live on life support. Well, the thing is, when the heart stops beating, that person is dead. But that respirator is not making the heart beat any more than a pacemaker is making the heart beat. So the duty to die, the movement dictators want everybody's pacemakers to be turned off. Think it over. Audio, here we go. There's been one guy pounding away on me over one of the videos about euthanasia. He just doesn't let up. And this guy doesn't really seem to want to be confused by any facts. Mandela's birthday, I started paying attention to little things about euthanasia, trying to push the Mandela family and the hospital to push them out, put an end to them, terminate them. Too old. He didn't say it in those words, but you know, the ideas are there in the body language. So anyway, euthanasia is euthanasia. And there were things came up that I never really thought about before, and maybe I did, but it never really went too far out of my way to really push it. It all it all started out when I first learned that Prince Philip and Nelson speaks a lot more than vocabulary words. And I really appreciate the fact that South Africa has not been totally poisoned yet by these European elite eugenics masters who try to work their way into becoming Mandela or fighting for their lives at the same time in ICUs. And I was thinking, they wouldn't dare, the euthanasia movement would not dare go after either of those guys because of their high-profile name and status. But in July, when it was coming up to Nelson